We had already spent time observing the work put into protecting animals on land and plant life, but we were yet to look at the attempts to protect local birds. So we met up with Lauren Hyams of Birds and Recreation Initiative at local hotspot Sandbanks. This project is managed by the Urban Heaths Partnership on behalf of BCP and Dorset Council and is advised by Natural England.
So the project is to mitigate against recreational disturbance to overwintering birds. So I'm out here engaging with members of the public, raising awareness, educating about how important Poole Harbour is as a habitat for overwintering birds. Poole Harbour is a SPA, which is a special protected area. Poole Harbour has that designation because of the species that we have that are threatened. So if the birds eventually move away from the harbour and stop using it as a winter feeding ground, then Poole Harbour loses that protection status.
Barry is a newly found project that looks at raising awareness of human activity that disturbs migratory birds using Poole Harbour as a place of refuge during the winter months.
Recreational disturbance can be anything from people on the water using kayaks or paddleboards, getting too close to the birds. It can be dog walkers, it can even be people bird watching if they get too close. Water sports does affect the birds. Some of the really popular areas for water sports are also great feeding habitats for the birds. One really simple thing that people can do is just look out for the birds when they're going out to do water sports. It might just be a simple case of just moving along further down the beach and launching and just giving the birds a bit of space.
It is the wildlife that live here that give the harbour its special title, such as the dark-bellied Brent geese.
Poole Harbour is popular amongst migratory birds that come here to overwinter because of the habitats, the rich habitats that it has. So mudflats is one, so when the tide is low and you see the birds feeding in the mud. There is salt marshes and reed beds as well, so it's all really vital habitat for feeding. When you're out enjoying Poole Harbour, whether that's going for a walk or you're on the water kayaking or paddleboarding, you're out there enjoying nature, and the birds are a part of that, whether you realise it or not. You're out there, you enjoy looking at them, you enjoy listening to the bird song that's out there, so they're part of the natural beauty of Poole Harbour.
Upton Country Park is a popular viewing point to see the birds that migrate here. We took a trip down there later on in the day to learn a little bit more about the effects of human activity.
If the birds continue to be disturbed, then short term they lose that vital energy that they've built up by feeding in Poole Harbour. Long term, then it will affect the survival of the birds. If they haven't got the energy to make their migration journeys, then they won't survive their journey back to their breeding grounds, which will affect their population. So when the birds are disturbed, so whether that's by people getting too near to them or being chased by birds and they fly away, that's called flushing. The protection of the birds is definitely important, not only for the birds but for people that live in the harbour. So if the birds eventually move away from the harbour and stop using it as a winter feeding ground, then Poole Harbour loses that protection status, which means that it's at risk of further development and urbanisation.
What type of reaction do you get from the people you meet?
The type of reaction I get from the people I meet is generally really positive. I think now we're part of a generation that is more environmentally aware. It's just a case of education, so local residents that have lived here all their lives will say to me that they didn't know what species we had, they didn't know that they come here for winter and that they have these really important migration journeys. So people are really excited to hear about the birds.
It was a refreshing feeling knowing that the future of Britain's wildlife was in safe hands for a future generation so concerned about the environment.